Thanks for joining us tonight for Fresno Writers Live. My name is Jefferson Beavers, and I'm the president of the Fresno State Creative Writing Alumni Chapter. I'm super excited to be with you here tonight in the Zoom room with a dozen of Fresno State's wonderful writer alumni. This is the New Year's Eve gathering. Our Creative Writing Alumni Chapter has done a community reading every year since we started in 2016. And this year we pushed things back a little bit, but we're super excited to have our New Year's gathering community reading here tonight. One of the purposes of our group is to bring together multiple generations of Fresno writers, and tonight's event truly does that. We asked all 9 members of our planning committee to invite one person tonight, and so this is truly a community curated event between all of us on the committee. And so again, I'm super excited to hear some of the new works tonight from our Fresno Writers alumni. And we have lots of interesting connections, people who haven't seen each other for years and years, people who are former students of the others, friends, friends all the way across. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. So first, a couple thank yous. This event could not be possible without our collaborators at the Fresno State Alumni Association. Special shouts out to Corrine, Nicole, and Donna. They're the ones who set up the Zoom webinar tonight, and they're the ones who support us in all of our virtual events efforts. So thank you to them. Also, big thanks to my collaborators on the Alumni Committee, in particular tonight's crew, Stephen Sanchez, who is the Zoom room host, Mialise Carney, who's one of our co-hosts, and Ronald Zarigian, one of our co-hosts. You'll see them in the little Zoom squares. Here is your backstage crew. And then also the other members of the committee who are either in attendance or will be in attendance. Those folks are Courtney Hughes, Camila Okafor, Gabriel Ibarra, and Ethan Chatanye. They're all really amazing collaborators, and we have a lot of fun doing this committee. Okay, so our first segment, we're going to start off with a little bit of music. Our first guest tonight will be Michelle Patton and Joseph Voth. Michelle and Joseph are both alumni of the MFA program. They comprise the musical duo, the Earnest Imperfects. And I may or may not have had an inadvertent hand in that name, so I hope that's a good name. The Earnest Imperfects. Michelle writes poetry and Joseph writes creative nonfiction. They both teach at Fresno City College, and I'm super excited to welcome Michelle Patton and Joseph Voth.
Yeah, thanks, Jefferson. And yes, Jefferson helped us come up with that name because we have no musical talent, but we have a lot of fun.
We're earnest.
We're earnest.
And imperfect.
And imperfect. And this first song we're going to do is in honor of Dry January, which we're doing. So I'm even more nervous, but the song is in honor of all people doing Dry January.
All right. Here's a story about a sinner. He used to be a winner who enjoyed a life of prominence and position. But the pressures at the office and his socialite engagements and his selfish wife's fanatical ambition, it turned him to the booze, and he got mixed up with the floozy, and she led him to a life of indecision. The floozy made him spend his doll. She left him lying on Skid Row, a drunken, lacking some salvation ammunition. It's such a shame. Oh, demon alcohol, sad memories I can't recall. Who thought I would say, damn it all, blow it all. Oh, demon alcohol, memories I can't recall. Who thought I would fall, slave to demon alcohol. Sad memories I can't recall. Who thought I would fall, the slave to demon alcohol. Barley wine, pink gin, he'll drink anything, port, Picaro, tequila, rum, scotch, vodka on the rocks, as long as all his troubles disappear. But he messed up his life when he beat up his wife, and the floozy's gone and found another sucker. She's gonna turn him on to drink, she's gonna lead him to the brink, and when his money's gone, she'll leave him in the gutter. It's such a shame. Oh, demon alcohol, sad memories I can't recall. Who thought I would fall? Damn it all, blow it all. Sad memories I can't recall. Who thought I would fall? Slave to demon alcohol. Thank you.
All right. Michelle and Joseph, thank you. Our first reader this evening is Mialise Carney. Mialise serves as our student representative on the Creative Writing Alumni Chapter, and she's a wonderful, wonderful writer who's already making a mark here in our MFA program. Mialise is the first-year student in the MFA in fiction. She is the multimedia editor for the Normal School magazine, and her writing has appeared in Hobart, Atlas and Alice, Menacing Hedge, and really too many others to mention. Mialise has been a fantastic collaborator in our alumni chapter. She hosted our Future Alumni Spotlight back in December, and I think you're really going to love her work tonight. Please welcome Mialise.
Thank you, Jefferson, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. So I'd like to read an excerpt from my short story called The Hydrangea Fairy. There's a fairy in the hydrangea bush just outside my bedroom window. She's been visiting me for the last few months every night, right in the watery soft moments between awake and asleep. I met her first during the illness. It was in early spring when I lost my balance and the world slipped wet like sand through my fingers. I could only stand for a few moments before my ears buzzed and the cream yellow walls of my apartment tilted as I tipped, melting into the liquid edges of my vision. For 2 weeks, I laid in bed trembling with nausea, the hydrangea fairy nestling to the cup of my ear, whispering to me all the ways she saw me drowning or dying or dead. When I recovered, I had hoped the hydrangea fairy would move on in search of a better body to burrow into, but she sticks to the routine. She creeps into my ear every night. The hydrangea fairy arrives in the shadows on my wall. She shivers, small enough to be a praying mantis, but sneaky enough, creepy enough to be some kind of rodent, sentient. Even in the shadow, she has an almost human shape, with a skirt made of tulips and twitching wings so translucent and thin I can only see the faintest outline, like 2 little almonds shaped down to a perfect snapping crunch. She shuffles across my windowsill, drops down heavily onto my crisp white sheets beside my pillowcase, huffs and scrambles to keep from sliding down to splat messily onto the hard wooden floor. Even though she visits me nearly every night, I feel terror, warm and thick, bubble just beneath my ribcage. I bite my tongue hard against the squeal. Her sharp spider hands grip the cartilage of my ear, dragging herself up like she might crawl right in. She nestles herself into the couch of my ear, her tiny heels thumping against my lobe. Her warm breath rustles, craggled and husky, thick with ash. I see you first in water, she says. I see you drowning in a tub. The hydrangea fairy never says hello, never asks me about my evening or how work is or if I'm enjoying the warmer weather. She always tells me how she sees me dead. She never leaves out a detail. She's very precise. I'll be wearing a shower cap with bright orange flowers. I'll have eaten a dinner of deviled ham and black olive sandwiches, but that won't be the reason I drown. It is always something far less sinister. I'll have fallen asleep in the moldy gloom and will slip under so slowly I won't even notice, all the water trickling down my nose and into my lungs, bloating my stomach up like a fish. I'll wake, but by then it'll already be too late, and no matter how hard I cough and cry, I won't be able to get it all up. The whole time you struggle, she says, like you're convinced you can keep yourself afloat. I tremble under the thin covers. I sweat and gulp big wet foamy blobs into the acid pool of my stomach. I never reply. I'm too scared and I don't know what I would say if I could. I listen to her belled feet tap tap against my ear and am lulled to sleep by her humming. In the morning I wake with a cramp in my neck and a stitch in my stomach. I remember her in the damp moistness of my cereal and the condensation of my bathroom mirror. I walk to work at the factory early in the humid mornings, just as the sun peeks its hairline over the horizon. I see her in the concrete cracks that tremble underneath my feet. At the puzzle factory, I work on the assembly lines where I glue pictures onto rough cardboard. I hold a splintered wooden brush and make the blurry images glossy and perfect and whole before the machine down the line stamps them into 100 pieces, a continual shattering of broken kittens and horses and flaking wheels of cheese. I've worked at the factory for a long time, at least 7 years. It's hard to get a good job, so I am grateful. I have a tiny ready-made apartment and I'm not allowed to change the furniture inside, but I moved it all just a few inches to the right so that it felt like mine, like a home. I lived with father before, but I had to leave when he said he was moving away from the city. He didn't like how I lounged around. He said that I needed to be useful. All I want is to be useful. So now I work enough to pay my rent and buy some canned foods, and I never have any money left over. But that's fine. I already have everything I should ever want. At the factory, we don't get sick time or days off or lunch breaks, and I was terminated during the 2 weeks of illness. But I was lucky. The day I came back to beg for my job, boss had just lost my replacement. My line mate Belinda said she was a timid, mousy thing fresh out of secondary school, that she had gotten her thin little finger stuck into the conveyor belt, ruining a few dozen puzzles with all the hot, sticky spray. Now I get to work early and relinquish my body to the repetition. Sunflowers, glue, press. Church, glue, press. The only difference is which picture I'm pressing, and even then they're given to their own repetition. I've never left the city, but at the puzzle factory, I've seen every major destination. Every religious temple, every rolling hill, every private woodland knoll. At the puzzle factory, I forget the outside. I forget the hydrangea fairy. I focus on the glue, my trembling fingers, and the lulling voice of my line mate Belinda working across from me. Belinda has worked at the factory longer than me, but only by a few months. She talks the whole time, a constant hum in tune with the thumping of the belt. I'm sure she's told me everything she's ever saw or thought or felt, and I keep it all tucked inside of me. I hold on to it for safekeeping. I know her husband's favorite television show. I know about her grandfather's illegal dog racing business. I've been there for all of her root canals, every crowning. I can feel the sharp stinging prick in my finger every time she checks her sugars with that little beeping thing she keeps tucked inside her apron pocket. Her hands pour, push, pull, press against the wet, sad eyes of a bear in a field of buzzing daisies. Her mouth gnaws, prances, empties. Her orange curls, faded to sunset gray, spill out of her knotted hairnet. A clatter ring on a rusting copper chain thumping against her sun-spotted chest. I listen, and she never looks up, and sometimes I wonder if she'll tell stories about me after I drown in the tub. Thank you.
Mialise, thank you. What an incredible story. I love the puzzle factory. I can see that bursting into all kinds of different stories and side stories. Thank you so much tonight. I did not mention that Mialise comes to Fresno on a tip from her mentor, Sarah Fawn Montgomery, who is also reading tonight. It's the first time we can think of that a MFA alumni became a full-time professor somewhere, and then one of their students has joined us. So we're super excited to have Mialise and Sarah Fawn on the same bill. Our second reader tonight is Esmeralda Gamez. Esme also serves on our organizing committee. She's a recent graduate of Fresno State's MFA program. Her bachelor's is also from Fresno State English Department. You can find Esme watching bad horror movies, writing poem fragments in her notes app that she never returns to again. And I'm grateful that she has pulled together some of those notes to share with us tonight. Please welcome Esmeralda.
Hi, thank you so much. It's really nice to be here. It's one of the things that I really miss because of this whole pandemic is being able to be in the literary community, just hearing some work. So it's nice that we can still have it online. So I'm gonna share some poems off my notes app because I was in Mexico for a while, so that's all I had. But 3 poems for you. The first one here is called Letter to My Father. I wanted to envision us in a movie. I'd write on a clean desk, the moon lighting every word, lighting every word. I'd take a break to stare at the starry night, crying, but in that quiet, pretty way. You'd read this letter and run to my next poetry reading or to the airport before my flight, embrace me and tell me nothing is more important than your children. We'd cry together. Can you imagine that? Instead, my hand shakes. There's no moon to tell me if you'll read it. It leaves, refusing to face who's left behind. I'll choose to forgive myself for the misspellings in my Spanish, for the hand smearing the words. Forgive me for my pain, my anger that's not quiet. There's no light to guide you back home. I can stop hoping better from you. The moon leaves, and I've learned this anger will one day leave me too. Okay. The second one is Untitled. The women in my family are quiet anger, seething under the surface of polite smiles, heating inside the food for the evening, while the men, like birds with beak open, gather to bite the hand that feeds them. The women of my family can't tell their stories, too painful, too long ago, too much unheard, but I hear snippets, shots of life I'll never get the full impact of. Crossed over at 16, caught over and over in the fields, stabbed a man in the chest, alcohol on the breath of his violence. Leaving, faces painted in bruises to start anew. Businesses with their names, children grown and married, leaving their tired mothers behind. No words or visits or calls. Grandchildren they can't speak to. Children they never knew their husbands had. Fragments of loss and disappointment, mottos mumbled over and over, mejor sola que mal acompañada, mejor sola que mal acompañada, mejor sola. At the kitchen sink, they tend to their wounds after the men in my family rip out what they need. Okay. And then this last poem is called Chroma Ruby, and it's for my grandma, because for the longest time, whenever I dye my hair red, she has the exact same red and the exact same haircut most of the time. So it's for my grandma, Chroma Ruby. The bowl of hair dye sits next to us as I read the white crown of your hair. Even your scalp has age spots, and I start thinking of your idol, La Santa Muerte, coming to lead you home. You tell me to stop, hair half done, so you can smoke your Malboros, a habit you picked up again after a decade of not inhaling. The smoke drifts away, and I watch you chuckle, amused at again being up to 3 reds a day. I finished painting you my red, or maybe it was your red first, and I, needing the warmth, clung to the ruby of your hair. You tell me the gossip only so that I will feel as like part of this family. And I tell you it's time to rinse. I echo your thoughts, or maybe you echo mine. So you say, cada cabeza es un mundo y estamos en el mismo. I dry your hair while you tell me the stories. I see in my hands the red passed on to me. Thank you.
Esmeralda, thank you so much. I remember just a couple of years ago listening to you read at the Rogue Fest, and you were sitting next to me in the front row, and there was not a dry eye in that place after you read. And I love hearing how your poetry continues to grow. Thank you so much. Okay, our third reader tonight to kick off our second segment is going to be JJ Hernandez. JJ is a poet here in Fresno. He holds an MFA in poetry from Fresno State, and he served as one of the 2 inaugural fellows in Juan Felipe Herrera's Laureate Lab Visual Wordist Studio. His work has been supported by Community Writers Workshop. He reads for the Offing magazine, and you can read JJ's work in Tinderbox, Queen Mob's Tea House, American Poetry Review, and many other places. JJ was fantastic a few months ago when he read with the chapter for Juan Felipe and Anthony Cody's book launch and I'm super excited to welcome him back here tonight. Please welcome JJ.
Hey everyone, thanks for that kind introduction, Jefferson. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'll read probably 3 poems if I have time, and we'll go from there. This first poem I'm going to read, I'm reading mostly new stuff and one old poem. This first poem is called "I'm So Tired But I Can't Sleep." He lies in your mother's lap and cries because he wants to sleep but can't. The unending anxiety of our culture has turned his brain into a fog of fear and loathing. How do I tell him that it's all okay? You know, you want to be old, how you want to look down on young for their disease of the unknown. How do I tell him that his friend's parents at the bike park believe in their rights over his? How do you not cry when your nephew tells you he's sad, nervous, anxious? I teach at a college and they constantly talk about equity and leveling the playing field. I wonder why there is a playing field and how do I eviscerate the other side? Justice means taking the heads off our enemies and staking them on sticks in front of the castle. That would make him nervous too. I believe in the survival of the fittest and agree with Prodigy that there's a war going on outside that no man is safe from until he's in my mother's lap and she brushes his hair, delicate fingers. Capitalism tells me that the strong survive, that the sensitive boys are scared to death. How do you disagree with a society that is always awake and ready to take the next shot? I'm ready for things to go sideways. I'm ready to protect a shotgun next to my bed because the scene in my head is making me cry. And then moving on to the next one. This is a little bit of an older poem. It's a haibun. It's like a Japanese form, most kind of a prose poem with a haiku at the end. And it's called El Toro. And it begins with an epigraph by Shiki. With the bull on board, a little boat crosses the river through the evening rain. How big is the bull Lorca was talking about stabbing between the shoulder blades? Because my cousin in Colorado had a young bull, and I wouldn't have been afraid to stab his little bull between the shoulder and into the heart. A bullfighter doesn't have anything to stand on but the balls of his feet. I'd be a dead bullfighter. My neighbors used to team rope swinging hearted lassos at baby cows who love to graze with their mother until the colonial man, white or brown, decides he wants to swing his stupid rope at their heads and hind legs. It's a spectacle to see, the 2 little legs tripping it up and making it fall. The conquistador jumps from his horse and ties them in a knot. A calf has no hope of having a good life. He will grow up to be USDA choice, signature, or prime, and they never use milk cows in the rodeo. A bull in an arena seems like a good gig for a while. At least they get to try and kill their captors. In late stage American capitalism, a poet tells me she imagines stepping on the president's neck until he dies and then being killed for treason. Treason. Has anyone even been killed for treason in the 21st century? Nah, I doubt it. A bull, El Toro, is a large, expansive creature, not some DreamWorks movie with John Cena. When people run with bulls, someone usually dies. I looked up bullfighters dying at the hand of their bulls, but YouTube takes the videos down. A bull before the battle gets lanced, gets stabbed until he bleeds, weakens, loses the red energy. This is how they want us to think about killing the president, or how they want us to watch Homeland on Showtime, or some complicated Russian HBO show. Children are in cages and they continue to lance the bull. Sin papeles. You don't belong here. Speak English. A bull on a ship is an image of immigration. A bull on a ship is an image of people taken and sold. A bull on a ship is becoming American. A bull on a ship is concentration camps on the border. A bull on the ship is absurd. Seems like it's the surreal image they tell you to write about in a surrealist poetry class. But when you do, they talk about the white buffalo and how the white buffalo is sacred and how they are channeling the whiteness of the white buffalo. But they are not. A bull on a ship, a bull boarded on a ramp, a bull docked and afraid. And then this last poem I'm going to read is also really new. And it's a poem, I don't know, I've just been, I don't know, I'm in my head lately, so I guess that's what I'm doing. This poem's called G minor. It's kind of after Alejandro Jodorowsky. G minor. Does God care that you don't capitalize the G? Is he as pretentious as E. E. Cummings? Are an academic starving for attention? The little g is nicer, almost the sign of infinity. When I tell academic this, he tells that one white girl who plays the ukulele. She wants to go home with him on the back of his bicycle. Little G minor in music is Dido's Lament by Purcell, as are most underworld journeys into the soul. Big G, God, won't travel down into the seventh, and that makes Big G weak. When Moses saw the backside of Big G, he shone bright like the sun, had to wear a veil over his face because people can't see Big G's glory. That's fucking pretentious. I wish I had the sense to worship a golden calf, but rather I write dead lines for a dead child. El Topo is blinded every time he sees the sun. Should I emerge, I wash myself in blood and sneeze at the sun. Thank you all.
God damn, JJ. Thank you so much. That is some extraordinary work. You got to just let the silence be there for a second after JJ Hernandez reads. Our next reader in this segment is Arielle K. Jones. Arielle is a queer writer of color from the Central Valley. Her work portrays intimacy and underrepresented identities through taboos, folk tales, fairy tales. Her work has been published in the Rumpus, Blood Orange Review, Alternating Current, many other places, and recently in the anthology Remapping Wonderland, Classic Fairy Tales Retold by People of Color. And one of our other panelists tonight, Monique Quintana, also has a piece in that excellent anthology. Super excited to hear her read. I haven't heard her read for a couple years, so please welcome Arielle.
Hello. Thank you so much for the introduction, Jefferson. Yeah, so yes, retelling fairy tales is my thing, and I have a new one that I just finished. And here we are. So for it's titled Until the Last Petal Fell. Okay. No one told her that you could fall out of love. This morning, it is the fork's fault. It's the way that she's had to watch how he holds it, bringing it up, pulling it out past his lips, and then down, and then up to feed himself again. He even has a napkin tucked up under his shaven chin. Between the clinking of his fork back to the plate, he dithers on with his latest epiphany about ruling. He seems to forget that she did not marry the people. She married him. When she looks at his ring, she mostly sees how sparse the hair is on his hand. Without a word, she interrupts him by reaching out, rubs her thumb over their symbol of union, then over one of the buttons at his wrist. Before, he never wore jackets at all. Take it off, the young queen says. Rarely does she attempt orders. Such is quite apparent as he responds, take this off, my clothes. Not all of them, says his beauty. He used to be her beauty too. And let's do away with these silly things. She shares this to him kindly while dropping her fork and then her knife to the floor. As the metal rattles against the stone, she halts the concerned servants with a dismissive wave, looks up at her husband as if he is another creature drinking at the same pond. He doesn't seem at all to understand, but after a pause, he does the same, drops his own utensils out of reach. Remember when you tried to impress me? When forks wouldn't fit in your paw quite right, and you couldn't recall if you were right or left-handed anyway? He smiles, and a blush comes to him and spreads, mottled masses of pink on his cheeks, going down his neck beneath his collar, like a broken-out fire that she can do nothing about, like rapid rot taking over from the inside. It looks like a fever, a hot sickness that makes her embarrassed for him. She makes herself squeeze his hand in a way that their rings align, fights her ever-present discomfort with having to touch his skin. Ever since their vows, she's known her preference. They had comforted one another within the unkept walls of this castle-turned prison. She had defended him from the mob and been there too when the change had happened, when the curse released him. Bones broke beneath the skin, and the blotchy shedding had taken an hour for him to ruin his way through. His bellowing had been heartbreak for her. His talons had clattered to the floor, much like their cutlery. His brow had sloughed down in size, and his legs cracked backwards, forcing him to kneel. And that had been the end of him walking on all fours. A tragedy. She has caught herself riding out into the pastures. She runs her hands over the cows. They are the closest beast she's found to the stalking height her husband once was. Sometimes she takes her thumb, pushes her nail against the grain of their coarse hair. In tiny prickles, they stub themselves, over and over, her fingertips like mice nosing into a room at the slit beneath a door. She loves that feeling, misses it with him. His furred shoulder blades had once been her favorite part, like ruddy mountains constantly sliding along one another. So powerful he was. And now, across the table, she can see his bluish veins with her naked eyes. And as she stares at what he's been reduced to, she must listen as he goes into a lecture of luxuries. How she ought to be grateful for her gowns and the services and their comforts and their fine things and the grace he has extended to her spoiled sisters and her simple father. It happens every time he realizes that she's gone nostalgic. This is when she gets up and goes to the window, presses her palm to the sill, his ranting at her back as she looks out at the garden below. He isn't afraid of roses anymore. The plump heads of red and cream all dappled in bushes along the garden's edge. Behind her, his chair finally scrapes back and he yells. Almost all the petals fell. She turns, brow curved. He'd almost be impressive if it weren't for the napkin still tucked at his collar as he stands there looking down at her. It took until nearly all the petals were gone for you to love me. The way he says it, he sounds like he's still worried that he doesn't have enough time. But he doesn't get to claim this like he's some victim, innocent. I was nothing but a bargain to you. Don't. And his eyes are wild and sharp with the demand. You stayed. Whether it was for the house, the title, or for me as your pet project, you stayed. This, she can tell, is a declaration that has allowed him to stay so comfortably asleep beside her. That won't do. So she says, don't give yourself so much credit. If I made a pet out of you, you would have been so much more obedient. He steps in, then says low, command me then. His hands have come just that much away from his sides. Maybe they remember that once upon a time he'd had claws to consider. He ducks his gaze and tilts his head to meet her eyes, says, make a demand of me then. Enough of these tricks, hiding shoes, overturning mirrors, burning combs. It has been this way for weeks. I don't know what you want of me. Her blood feels thicker as her heart beats. He steps back, disgusted. Is that the truth of it? You want for me to hurt you? Careful, she says, as confidently as one can in a whisper. Isn't judgment what brought your curse to you? Physical. It was physical judgment that I served for. His voice has gone low again, a warning, almost a growl. If only. Thank you.
Arielle, thanks so much. My goodness, every time I hear you read, it's like nerves, bare nerves. Thank you. Our next reader tonight is Sarah Fawn Montgomery. Sarah Fawn has read with us before, right at the launch of her debut memoir just a few years ago. Sarah Fawn's the author of Quite Mad, an American Pharma memoir, and the poetry chapbooks Regenerate, Poems of Mad Women, Leaving Tracks, A Prairie Guide, and The Astronaut Checks His Wristwatch. A Fresno State MFA alumna, she is currently an assistant professor at Bridgewater State University. Super happy to welcome back Sarah Fawn.
Thank you, Jefferson, and thank you everybody that is coming out tonight. I think the only good thing that has come out of the pandemic is the fact that we have Zoom readings like this, where you can get people from all across the country together to share good words. I'm really pumped to be here because I've got my old MFA colleagues here. I've got some writers that I'm a huge fan of that I've just never been able to meet in person. So now I get to meet them virtually. And I'm also here with one of my former students, Mialise from Massachusetts. And Mialise had the good sense to move somewhere where it's not snowing all the time. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you to read. Because it's a New Year's event, I've chosen to read a short essay that's set on New Year's Eve, although this is a different time when people actually got together and hung out in person without masks. So we can all think back to that. And a bit of brief context before I start, it's about the game Dungeons and Dragons. And if you don't play that, a very oversimplified description of Dungeons and Dragons is that it is a game where you use dice and your imagination to tell sort of a collective group story. So this is called Men Teach Me How to Play Dungeons and Dragons. The first rule is to listen. This is a game of imagination, so players don't simply move plastic tokens. No, they create unique characters with personalities and rich histories. The man explaining this to me on New Year's Eve, for instance, has decided to play as an academic wizard. He is very smart, words carefully selected from the thesaurus and therefore a little clunky in his mouth, like he's wearing a dental guard. I'm the one with the PhD, a professor of storytelling, actually, but in this world, the wizard speaks to me very slowly. He interrupts to clarify. He has a mighty staff. The wizard informs me about the character I will imagine. Apparently, I am to be a druid healer. I exist to take care of others, fix those who are damaged fighting, like wizards. Are the creatures winged? Do they have blue scales and sing opera, I ask? Why don't I have a mortar and pestle to grind healing herbs into a poultice? That's not how we play, says the wizard. He repeats himself in case I don't understand. I want to ask what color his robes are, if he wrote his dissertation on paleontology. I want to know if he studied spores from rare mushrooms like the ones that grow at the foot of the mountains near my village, glint ochrefered in the morning light as I pick them with my spindly purple fingers, hang them to dry while the blah blah beast chortles beside me. The second rule is to follow directions. I choose my name from a pre-selected list the wizard provides. We begin the quest, 2 men and their female partners counting down the end of the year, though we must all be men in this game. The character I imagine is neither male nor female, but gender, like names, must be selected. Our band of travelers moves through the map in a straight line. I hear a stream and want to detour. That's not the right direction, the wizard says. We come across 2 paths diverged, but cannot explore the woods that I imagine are salmon-colored and scented of marshmallow. The other former female is tasked with choosing our path. Are you sure you want to do that? The wizard asks in the same tone he probably uses while doing their taxes. We walk the wizard's way. Suddenly we are surrounded by wolves. It's my turn. You'll want to attack, wises the wizard, holding the dice out to me like jewels or a child's treat. I want to cast a spell to talk to the animals, feed them some squirrel meat, rub soothing salve on their hurt paws. They're wolves, says the wizard. Just kill them. We do. Rain beads off their pelts as we leave, and I want to cast a spell to see the future. Watch pink flowers become their eyes, vines tendril around their bright bones. As we travel away, the wizard and his staff at the lead, a melancholy wail follows us. I want to cast a resurrection spell. Watch your dice, woman, the wizard cries when I toss them in a way that takes up too much space. I'm confused, seeing as my character is a man. I hold myself quiet, still. This is what a druid healer does, after all, for it is better to hear the beat of the bird wings or the sound of a snail, the glisten it leaves behind, the antidote to loneliness. I'll do the talking, he says, when we get to the imaginary town. He asks lots of questions, repeating the answers back to the rest of us, even though we are also in the goblin pub. I did not even want to go through the town. A nearby cave was calling to me. Go to the cave, say the goblins. We must go to the cave, the wizard proclaims. There is a skirmish with blood bears on the way to the cave, and the wizard is hurt. I almost feel sorry for him there on the forest floor, his bloodied robes billowing. You must heal me, he commands, before I even begin my turn. Maybe his injury is the reason he stopped handing over the dice, flings them across the table at me instead, or uses his hand to scatter the tower I make with the dice each time I conclude my turn. I built you to heal me, he insists. Even though I am a man, I can feel the rib I sprung from, a twisted root in my side. What are you waiting for? Cries the wizard as the clock lurches towards a new year where everything will be the same. People desperate to craft themselves different, circle from the predetermined path, led now by an orange ogre, words clunky in his mouth, his club, he likes to remind us, huge. I grip the dice in my hand. I put them down. I'm going to rest, I decide. You can't, disapproves the wizard, much smaller now that he is writhing on the ground. He crushes ochre-furred mushrooms beneath his protest. Later, I will gather them to make a stew. I rest, I repeat, studying the map. I am looking for places to deviate from the path. I am tired of walking in a straight line and would like instead to explore, to build my character. This rushed climb to climax is tiresome. I spin instead, holding my hands out to summon velvet-flavored leaves. I rest again on my next turn. Perhaps I am a woman after all, deserving of rest the way I am deserving of extra instructions. The wizard takes off his celebratory cardboard top hat and sighs, crossing his arms. He is near death, pale and weak. He doesn't have the energy to summon fancy words, though plenty for condemnation. He will not look at me. I collect flowers, befriend a furious blood bear, and trick a dragon into revealing its secrets and treasures without injuring it, despite the wizard's protests that that is not how you play. At last I announce, I heal you. And because he has not looked at me since I began moving in circles, I add, you're welcome. All game, the wizard has kept the gold we have gathered for himself. He needs the armor, he insists, because he is the most important warrior. I motion to the dragon treasure I've captured. Buy yourself something nice, I offer. The New Year's ball drops, auld lang syne, a toast, though like his eyes, he will not bring his glass to mine. Strength newly summoned, he purchases a larger rod to lead the way. Thank you.
Sarah, Fawn, thank you so much. I remember when I first met you, you were just starting the program and I had just graduated. We were in a like nonfiction writing class, a journalism kind of class with Stephen Church. And I admired your ambition from the first time I met you. Thank you for that piece. All right. Our third segment tonight features 3 more readers. We're going to have Eric Parker, Stephen Sanchez, and then Elizabeth Schulte Martin. First is Eric. Eric, as I announced to our backstage crew, was a housemate of mine for 1 whole semester, circa 2005 or so. And I've loved keeping up with his adventures and his writing progress for 15 years now. Eric grew up between Clovis and Fresno, and he has a BA in English and an MFA from Fresno State. He currently is a senior instructor at the University of Alabama. Of course, he's very excited with their recent football championship. Eric's been at Alabama teaching composition, literature, and creative writing since 2010. Super excited to welcome my brother tonight to this event, Eric Parker.
Do I just start? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Jefferson, my brother. And thank you to Courtney for inviting me to do this. And thank you to all the readers for sharing your time and the Zoom room with me. We're in the Zoom room, woo! All right, so I'm just gonna read the prologue to the book project that I'm trying to finish this spring, finally. It's about a poet friend of mine, and I framed the whole thing, if you're familiar with Herman Melville's Bartleby the Scrivener, Sydney is my Bartleby in my life. So I start with a quote from that short story, long short story. It says, excuse me, while of other law copyists, I might write it I know what's going on. Hold on, I gotta put my old man glasses on. Try not to Chuck Schumer you too much. Here we go. While of other law copyists, I might write the complete life. Of Bartleby, nothing of that sort can be done. I believe that no materials exist for a full and satisfactory biography of this man. It is an irreparable loss to literature. Bartleby was one of those beings of whom nothing is ascertainable except from the original sources, and in his case, those are very small. So here's the prologue. In the summer of 2008, Sydney Scott Setzer arrived in Mexico with an engagement ring burning a hole in his pocket. The white gold ring had a beautiful Art Deco design set with a single VS diamond flanked by baguette-sized stones. As custom dictates, most couples discuss marriage before they get engaged, and the excitement comes in the unexpected timing and setting of the knee bending and asking. Sydney did no such thing. He and his girlfriend were not on a romantic vacation anywhere along the Yucatan Peninsula. There were no days spent parasailing high above the Gulf of Mexico's warm waters, no nights sipping salty margaritas while shoveling feet in the cooling sand, no waiting for the perfect moment to pop the question. Sydney did not have a girlfriend. Nor, sorry, sorry. I just lost it. Okay, sorry. Sydney did not have a girlfriend, nor any prospect of a girlfriend. He was a 45-year-old gringo who owned the ring for 10 years and lived with his 85-year-old mother. Asked now why he carried the ring, he carefully chooses his words in a quiet Texas accent. I know it sounds crazy, but I worked for an estate jeweler in Tennessee. I bought one simply because it was a good deal. It was pretty. I knew someday, I'm a heterosexual man, and more than likely, someday I will need to use it. I don't know for whom it is destined, but it will be for someone. I just buy it under the idea, if you build it, they will come. Within 5 minutes of talking to Sydney, you suspect something is off. Maybe a touch of autism or savant syndrome, something. Like a hybrid offspring of Rain Man and Forrest Gump. At the time he rolled into the central Mexican town of San Miguel de Allende, an expat hotbed in Guanajuato State, Sydney looked younger than 30. His bespectacled face an odd mixture of childish charm, drooping basset hound sadness, and hygienically neglected teeth. He wore ill-fitting thrift store clothes, usually a polo shirt or plaid button-up, severely worn-out cowboy boots, and a large silver rodeo buckle that latched the oversized belt around his thin waist. A loose metal watch dangled from his wrist, the hands of time facing the ground. Sydney describes himself as a, quote, mesomorph who's a decent, all right looking guy, but nothing special at all. And his driver's license says he's 5'9" and 160 pounds. He's probably several inches shorter, at least 10 pounds lighter, and looks even smaller the way his shoulders slump and his long arms dangle, puppet-like at his sides. Sydney came to San Miguel to study poetry at the University of New Orleans program, even though he already possessed 3 University of Tennessee undergraduate degrees and a Master of Liberal Arts in Literature from the University of St. Thomas. He salts his conversations with references to obscure historical events and people, works of art, and lines from novels and poems, as well as song lyrics from shoegazer bands. When he arrived in Mexico with the engagement ring, he lived in that small apartment with his elderly mother in Houston, Texas, which did nothing to increase his chances of finding marital bliss. Unemployed and fresh out of my own MFA program, go Bulldogs, in creative writing, I'd been invited by the UNO program coordinator to spend a month working on my writing and staying in a $250 a month hostel room. Sydney was my roommate. He seemed odd at first, but harmless and funny, and my instinct was to help him. Other people had the opposite reaction. For instance, one woman in the program said, "Why do you hang out with Sydney? He's repulsive." Early in the program, the rumor about the engagement ring flew on winged feet from writer to writer and became a point of curiosity and ridicule. Is it true? Does he really carry a ring? No one would marry Sydney. Everyone agreed. If a Cinderella candidate did magically materialize, she'd have to find the engagement ring story romantic and destined for her like a glass slipper, even if it had to be resized. In the summer of 2010, 2 years after being Sydney's roommate, I dropped down to San Miguel amid another one of my unemployed stints, lured by the promise of a free place to stay and more writing time that would inevitably turn into more drinking time, and a new rumor fluttered through the program. Sydney had a Mexican wife. Make that a pregnant Mexican wife. That's what he claimed anyway. At the time, I figured whatever undiagnosed mental ailment he suffered from had finally spun him into a reality refashioned by his brain. 3 years later, I tracked him down in Laredo, Texas, living in a homeless shelter. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric Parker. I have heard you tell stories about Sydney for so long, and I'm really looking forward to reading this manuscript when you put it out.
Thank you.
All right. Our next reader is our Zoom room host tonight, Stephen Sanchez. So some of our backstage people are changing up their support for the moment. Stephen has been a member of our Alumni Chapter's organizing committee from the very beginning. He's the author of the excellent poetry book, Phantom Tongue, selected by Mark Doty for the Rochelle Ratner Memorial Award, a Fresno State MFA alum, Canto Mundo Fellow, and Lambda Literary Fellow. Stephen's poems have appeared in Agni, American Poetry Review, Missouri Review, and elsewhere. And I'll just say a personal note, I can't remember a single time hearing Stephen Sanchez read, and there's been probably a dozen times I've heard him read, where he hasn't just stunned me with his incredible, incredible poetry. And I'm super excited and grateful to hear him read again tonight. Stephen.
Oh, that was really nice, Jefferson. Thank you. So I have 3 poems I want to share tonight. And the first one I want to share is kind of about my favorite STI. I don't know if y'all know how syphilis got its name, but just in case you don't know, I want to share that real quick. There was a poem written in the 1500s to kind of told the story of what was happening when syphilis was spreading through Europe for the first time, because no one knew what it was. And so the poet named it syphilis, just named a character syphilis as like the person who's getting it. And that poem became so popular and spread probably just as fast as the STI that scientists ended up adopting syphilis as the name for the disease. So it's actually named by a poet, which I thought was really cool. So on that note, actually, this poem is an ode to syphilis. And it borrows a line from that poem. Hiding its origin, this evil thing sprawls over Europe. O syphilis, noble shepherd, you condemned a god who carved your land into troughs for steeds that gorged and left lesions in place of rivers. Apollo spread 100 red suns across your body, and they still radiate in my own skin, a universe of stars left for me to navigate. My rashes are a summer of sunsets, violet and warm to the touch, after I too took a Lord's name in vain, replaced it with the man inside my lips. Now, syphilis, whenever I swallow, a star burns down my throat like a wish, illuminates my chest where bacteria in my heart will replicate if I let them, if I believe it's just about skin and not the way an entire body can be colonized into submission so silently. Nothing undoes that kind of damage. Like the cankerous white flames sprawled over Europe after Columbus returned, acquired from the New World, scientists claim. And if that's true, dear syphilis, bless you, holy prophet, for warning us all how much we carry, for reminding me how a man throttled my neck, and I prayed he would expand my pupils into night, as if I would finally see the darkness in myself, every constellation and myth I've devoured. Okay. So I just 2 more poems. This one borrows a line from the Bible, from 1 Corinthians 13. I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and that's the epigraph. The title also comes from the Bible too, so I stole that too. Through a glass darkly. The glass slips through my grip. I sweep the debris and try to step around it, but my foot crushes a shard into a fine layer of dust that glitters like manna in the desert, like that shot glass that shattered in an Arizona bar's ice bin. I was drinking water, chewing ice, thinking the ice was freezer burned, wouldn't grind any finer between my teeth, wouldn't melt. Then I swallowed and tasted my own blood. That night, I kissed a man who wasn't the man I'd left at home, watching our 2 dogs as I traveled across the country. I loved that man. Loved as in past tense, as in over, as in even if I try to piece this glass back together, it will always be misaligned, will always have a crack, a fissure where water will seep. I've learned every pane already has thousands of micro fissures no human eye will ever see. What if I could see every flaw, every fault suspended like radials in a web, spindled halos catching sunlight and morning dew? Would I mistake my reflection for an angel, don one of those imperfect crowns and ignore what I've done? After that night in Arizona, every time I kissed the man back home, I was learning to unlove. It isn't falling out of it. It isn't so sudden, so quick, a convenient story about when the favored angel crashes to earth, an easy origin to say it ended here. No, it's slower than that. It's moving your furniture out of your shared apartment, one piece at a time. It's a sofa's silhouette smudged against the wall. It's the way you try to scrub it clean. The way his face rises in your mind every time you kiss another man until one day you notice his face has set in some dark cupboard of your memory that you find yourself opening up sometimes in the middle of the night when all the lights are off. When you reach for a glass, feel it slip through your grip and you don't even try to save it. Okay. And then this, sorry, that was my dog shaking her ears. And then this last poem, yeah, no epigraphs, no stolen lines or anything. Brother. Like water, you poured Lunesta in your cupped hand and drained our mother's bottle empty. Often, I know thirst is an afterthought. The body mud-cracked long before the tongue dries and buds its first cacti. You reached inside your throat and plucked a desert bloom, plucked again and again until your body expelled a bouquet. Left behind, a single clipping can sprout and grow a shadow where it's so appealing to sit and call it rest. I have planted seeds in your chest, tilled the soil with my own 2 fists, hated you like myself. Is it a phase? No, he's a faggot. Mom and Dad whispered about me. They whispered about you too. Mom says to prolong a flower's life, cut the stems, fill the vase with aspirin water. Before it wilts, hang it upside down and douse it in hairspray. For years, I've kept mine this way, brittle and delicate. They say flowers thrive when you talk to them, when you sing lullabies. Please, Jacob, hear me when I say I love you. Okay. Thanks, yo.
Stephen, thanks so much. It's an extraordinary piece. See what I mean? Every time Stephen reads, it takes me a minute to collect my breath. Thank you. Our next reader tonight is Elizabeth Schulte Martin. Elizabeth is a Fresno State MFA alumna. She's the author of the novel Everything You Came to See, which is just crackling with the life of her circus characters. Her short fiction has appeared in the New England Review, Ninth Letter, Witness Magazine, Hot Metal Bridge, and elsewhere. And she has received a special mention in the Pushcart anthology. Elizabeth's broadcasting tonight from Indianapolis. We've had people from Alabama, Massachusetts, and all over the place. And I'm super excited for Elizabeth to be reading with us tonight. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thanks, Jefferson. Thanks for Thanks, everyone. This is really great. It's really great to see everybody. I needed this really bad. So I'm going to read an excerpt from a short story that's about 3 witches, called 3 Witches because I'm great at titles. And this is from the point of view of one of the witches. The Matron, October 1995. I know it sounds fucked, but I've done a lot of really solid parenting while drunk. Not slurring, falling down drunk, but half a bottle in, definitely not stopping till the bottle and maybe 2 beers are gone kind of drunk. Once, for example, my son Matthew was having a temper tantrum because he'd bitten off the leg of a plastic spider ring a week before Halloween, and now it was anatomically incorrect. And because I was drunk, I completely understood why a person could fly into a rage over such a thing. You make one goddamn mistake and there goes the whole body. A spider is not a spider without 7 legs, or with 7 legs. It's lost its whole identity. And yeah, it's your fault, but it isn't fair that things should be made so delicately that a set of baby teeth can utterly destroy them. Sometimes things aren't fair, but fuck the universe for making that the way it is, because things should be fair. I taped the leg back on the spider for my son, and when this wasn't enough, I mourned with him, and my tears made him feel not so alone. If I had been perfectly sober, I might have told him that it was just a plastic ring, that I might get him a new one, that his sadness was petty. And I don't think that would have been as kind, nor as true to how I really feel. I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic. It's just that after my husband slept with his coworker, my personality was hijacked by someone else, someone who was anxious and furious and very likely to drink to soften the effects of those feelings. He said he was sorry. I forgive him. But the woman who hijacked my personality is very afraid he will do it again. And she is 1, drunk, 2, an actual witch. The night before Halloween, I'm snuggled in bed with Matthew, reading him a book about cats that do construction, a tabby and the backhoe, a calico and a pink hard hat driving the dump truck. I don't want to be Batman anymore, he says, interrupting me mid-page turn. His brassy curls lay soft over his temples. He hasn't asked for a haircut yet, and I have only given him 1 trim 6 months ago. I know eventually he'll want some kind of high and tight or faux hawk like the other little Indiana boys he goes to school with. But until he asks for it, I won't take off another millimeter. But we already bought your costume. He shakes his head. I don't want to be Batman. I want to be Crazy Quilt. I snicker because Crazy Quilt is an obscure character from a random Nightwing comic I read him a month ago. It wasn't the most age-appropriate thing to be reading him, but it wasn't too violent, and any sexual innuendo went right over his head, so I figured it was okay. Baby, they don't have Crazy Quilt costumes. I'll make it myself, he says. Halloween is tomorrow, I say, but he blinks and shrugs, unsure of what relevance this has to his new plan. He points to the cat book. Keep reading, he says. How do I know that the woman who's overtaken me is a drunk witch and not just a drunk? There's evidence. Listen, witches have powers. They are the anti-Buddhists. They look around and see suffering in the world and they say, fuck that, I'm gonna do something about that. That is magic. Imposing your own will on this shitty ass world to make it better and not taking your own unhappiness lying down. This person I become sometimes has powers. For example, Michael, my husband, comes home late looking angry, like maybe that will keep me from asking questions about why he's late. His gray work shirt has stains in the pits and he has dark circles beneath his eyes. When I give him a bright hello, he ducks his head unsmiling. Inside, I'm all vines and roots, a veritable forest of strangling plants, all lush and lively and killing me, because I want to ask why he is late, if he's been fucking his coworker again. And I also know if I ask, he will blow up and the forest will grow wild, tearing me limb from the inside. Whether he was or he wasn't, he will say no. He will say, I told you I was sorry, okay? Why can't you get over it? She's just a friend, Farah. So instead of asking, I make a drink. Let's say a white Russian, heavy on the Russian. And then I control the forest. The vines that strangle, the tree limbs and wild things work for my interests now. And so I invite him in. I set a trap. And when he falls for it, comes into me, the forest curls around him. When I fuck him, he looks desperate and frantic. And when he orgasms, he looks lost. Washing his face while we fuck is as good as reading his mind. I have visions. I know if he has slept with her, or if he has thought of sleeping with her, or if he has just sat with her in his car, high on her pheromones and her longing for him, and cried that he couldn't have both her and his wife and son too, both the comfort of his family and the thrill of her body. In my visions, only the shape of her hands, her fingers, sometimes her hair, which is sunshine blonde. I don't want to picture her hand on top of his hand, but this vision is a spell component, and I know that I have to gather those components. What I'll do with them, I don't know, but I know that gathering them is essential. When the witch got hold of me, I found a book at a garage sale about the philosophy of witchcraft. I was drunk when I read it, so only the witch remembers the details, but I know that if I can gather the right pieces, I can put something together that will make things right, twist the arm of the universe until it is fair again. Still, holding inside me the visions of Michael touching his lover hurts like you wouldn't believe, and so I make another drink or two and tell him sweet dreams, and he falls asleep, and I make another drink or two. I keep doing this over and over. He keeps meeting her in his car. It's been like this since June. Now October is ending. At each new moon, I set my intentions. Thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. What an incredible story. I see some comments in the chat. Publish this immediately. I would agree. Also, shouts out to Elizabeth for her version 1 Fresno Writers Tee. I didn't get to print any this year. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I didn't get to print any this year, because it's the pandemic and all. So keep an eye out. Hopefully this fall, when we all get back together again, we can hopefully have more Fresno Writers Tees. All right. We are near the end of tonight's reading. We have one more reader, Monique, plus the music of Michelle and Joseph to take us out. But I want to take just a moment tonight to read a poem by a Fresno writer who's no longer with us. And the last couple, this is our 4th community reading, and the last couple readings we've done, I've done that. The second one, I read a poem by Larry Levis, and our last one, I read a piece from Mia Barraza Martinez. Tonight, I'm going to read a poem by Luis Omar Salinas, and this is a collection, Messenger to the Stars, an Omar Salinas reader. If you are interested in having a copy of this book, drop me an email. Our friend Christopher Buckley happened upon a box of these, and he wants to just give them away for free to Fresno writers who give it a good home. If you send him a couple bucks for mailing, he'll send it back to you. So Omar, the Crazy Gypsy, lived in Sanger for many years. He's one of my favorite Fresno poets, Fresno writers. And I'm going to read one poem for Omar tonight so that he is a little bit present with us. And the piece I'm going to read is a letter that he wrote for John Weinberg. Weinberg, another Fresno writer who also recently passed away. And so this is Omar Salinas, letter left for John Weinberg. And probably the only thing you need to know about this poem is John Weinberg was from Estonia. His family's from Estonia. You must be out somewhere, counting the trees or the dreamers, the fireflies disappearing in October with its treasures in a coat of dusk. I am welcomed into your house by Moses, your dog, and the crickets are serenading while the evening gathers its flesh of children. I have wondered about Estonia, the blood of your forefathers, like a sky bluer than silence. Under the stars, I catch your warriors' laughter, and in the house of Estonia, a last star traverses your eyes in the hush of coffee and morning. You're a magician in the clouds, sojourning through life, a troubadour singing the simple odes to light. I wish I could spin your heart through my Mexican barrio and joke the mariachi into song. Quibble about girls, think about the nature of angels. You are a song. And the ballads of the mountain and cornfield sing a joy of good fortune. I too welcome dawn like you and whistle down the avenue. Confident, positive, the mid-noon sun will be a poem written in the heart where it all belongs. Omar Salinas, if you're interested in having a copy of that book, please let me know and I'll connect you with Chris Buckley. Wanted to make sure that some Fresno writers who are no longer with us were present tonight. All right, so our next reader is Monique Quintana. And I had a wonderful opportunity to host Monique for a one-on-one Fresno Writers Live reading with the Osher Institute a couple months ago. And it was just about 15 or so people. And it was extraordinary. I felt honored to have this much chance to talk with her and engage with her about her work. I've admired her work for so long. Monique is the author of the novella Cenote City and the new chapbook, which will be out in March, My Favorite Sancho and Other Fairy Tales from Sword and Kettle Press. A Fresno State MFA alumna, Monique has had fellowships to Yaddo, Mineral School, Sundress Academy for the Arts, Community Writers, and the Open Mouth Poetry Retreat. She's a prolific publisher. I can't keep up with all of her amazing flash pieces, poems, and essays that are published widely on the internet. So please welcome tonight, Monique Quintana.
Thank you, Jefferson. Thank you, Quack. I also want to thank Camila for inviting me to read. Camila and I read together. We did our thesis defense together, just the two of us, and we were big old hams that day, and we were really feeling ourselves. So good times. I miss everybody. I'm going to read parts of my essay, Womb Geography, which came out through the Straight Out of Fresno archive. It was the opening piece. This was a project that was led by Romeo Guzman and Sean Susler, who were with the history department at Fresno State at the time. And they had asked me to write a piece that situated myself in Fresno in the late 90s. So this is me, winter 1997. That's what I start out with here. And I should say this essay is about two things. It's about me kind of getting together with my son's father. And it's also about my son growing up south of Shaw after I grew up north of Shaw. You find out his father named him after the silent film star Rudolph Valentino, which embarrasses him. He wears a black hooded utility jacket when he comes to see you. It has fake Sherpa lining to cut the cold and the fog, but his hair still smells like 3 Flowers pomade. He has a friend who goes by the name Pita, who has the same hairstyle he does, except it swings in a long ponytail tied up in a rubber band. She sings alto soprano, and she hasn't seen the girl she's in love with for 3 weeks because the girl's mother and father forbid it. He brings her to visit, and she pops in front of a gilded mirror that hangs near the entryway. She likes that song, My Love Is a Shh. She sings and pops to it in her red Mickey Mouse shirt. You sit in Tino's lap and watch her dance because there's nothing else you two want to do. She's a swirl of red, a bandana in her back pocket, a slow kick of denim, floating like she's in her mother's womb. She competed in a popping competition at a house party once, wearing a zoot suit. Her suit is white, and the room is warm and filled with longing. You hear a drum beat and rose petals pound the floor. She's the only girl on stage, but she always wins again and again. You and Tino break up, and he gets another girl pregnant that summer. You see him occasionally at the bus stop on McKinley and West, or you hear about him from one of your cousins. He asks about you, but they decide not to tell you because you're living your life north of Shaw, and the music is a loud drum, and you're not his Pocahontas baby anymore. When you and Tino get back together, he has a new haircut, a one on top and a 0 on the side. His daughter was born in 1999. She lives with her mother and wears white ruffled socks and Dora the Explorer sneakers and talks like a gangster. She bobs her head to the car radio. The Son You Have a Tino cries every time you drive past Shaw without crossing north of it. You wonder why he does this, what he thinks is on the other side. Your son's father wants to send your son to another school north of Shaw. It's your own high school alma mater. You don't want your son to go there because you know what it's like there. You know how the kids at your high school laughed at the kids crossing Shaw on bus 22 to come to their school. They call them the ghetto kids or hood kids, never really going to belong kids. They're lucky that we let them come here, kids. This morning, when your son left for Fresno High, you can hear Tupac playing through his earbuds. And you remind him that he needs to keep one earbud out when he's walking on the street. When he gives you an attitude, you want to remind him how your body had to make room for him, how your body made room for a man, and you're still learning how to do this. He walks away in his brand new sneakers that he's polished with a toothbrush and runs his hand through the pompadour in his haircut, the look he traded his skin fade for a few years ago. You call him later to ask him why he hasn't come home from school yet, and you can hear him with his friends laughing in the background. And you know he doesn't want to move schools, that he's set up in that place. When he gets home, you feel safe, and he burns a stick of copal like he can read your mind, and he plays a synthetic drum beat as an offering to the gods. Your son's father is on Fresno PD's Magic's list of gang affiliated, even though you can only see the dog paw inks on his shoulder haphazardly. When he gets pulled over by the police as he's driving you to dinner, you can hear your son holding his breath in his car seat, tiny air filling his cheeks, his hair cropped in shiny black curls like he's an angel baby. You wonder why they call a gang task force magic, if they could ever make boys turn into smoke. You ask yourself why you stay. You ask yourself why you stay with your son's father, despite all your differences. You ask yourself why he's the only G to ever really love you. You ask him why he wears his red fitted cap when he's driving, when he knows the cops will pull him over. You ask yourself why you will never learn Spanish, but you still tell him no chingazos, an offering when he goes to the cantina down the street from your house, because bad shit might happen if you go there, but you all keep going back anyway. Sometimes you get all dressed up in a miniskirt and put on black lipstick and you go with him. Why do you keep going back? People walking out on Olive Avenue look inside the cantina and are scared to go in, but you do. You keep going back because you know that after 9 o'clock, they trade the jukebox for a DJ and they clear the floors and there are colored lights everywhere. There are dancing skeletons in the wall and there are all the old gangsters. There are no more handstands, just the echo of your empty room, all the things that you're still learning. You still haven't married your son's father. You're not his wife. You're still his old lady. You tell people you live this way for political reasons. In the morning, you'll argue with him about what school your son should go to. But for now, the music is a loud drum, and you're not his Pocahontas baby anymore. Thank you.
Monique, that's an incredible piece. Thank you so much. These readings tonight, several of you have mentioned it. It's really a buoy to hear all of your voices. We have one more performance tonight from Michelle and Joseph, The Earnest Imperfects. And then I'll have a few wrap-up comments at the end. And so again, Michelle's a wonderful poet and Joseph's a wonderful essayist. He actually read with us at our last community reading. And I'm super excited and grateful that they decided to play some tunes tonight. So let's toss it to The Earnest Imperfects, Michelle and Joseph for this last segment.
Thanks, Jefferson.
Thank you. And thank you to all the readers. That was amazing. So much talent. It was just, I was trying to keep up with the chat, but I'm nervous. So my fingers were kind of slipping off the keys, but Yeah, and just a reminder, we're the Earnest Imperfects. So if you came in late, adjust your expectations. We have no musical talent.
We're taking a distinct fill. All right, ready?
All right.
Let us be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together. I've got some real estate here in my bag. So we bought a pack of cigarettes and Mrs. Wagner pies and walked off to look for America. Kathy, I said as we boarded the Greyhound in Pittsburgh, Michigan seems like a dream to me now. It took me 4 days to get shot from Saginaw. I've come to look for America. Laughing on the bus, playing games with the faces. She said the man in the gabardine suit was a spy. I said, be careful, his bow tie is really a camera. Toss me a cigarette, I think there's one in my raincoat. He smoked the last one an hour ago. So I looked at the scenery. She read her magazine and the moon rose over an open field. Kathy, I'm lost, I said, though I knew she was sleeping. I'm empty and aching and I don't know why. Counting the cars on the New Jersey Turnpike, they've all come to look for America. All come to look for America. All come to look for America.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Michelle and Joseph, thank you. All right, I liked ending on a little bit of a happy sound. Some of you have mentioned this already tonight. Making space for each other in these virtual spaces has been painful in so many ways, right? But it's also a gift in other ways. And someone, I think Eric just posted in the chat, I hope we can see each other in real spaces in real time sooner rather than later. I'm grateful for all of you being here tonight.